This is a very excellent article written about capital needs assessments. When we're doing owner-occupied rehab, when you do the inspection to determine what the work orders are going to be, what the scope of work is going to be, it doesn't get a fancy name, right? It's just called a rehab inspection. The people that do it are called rehab specialists or rehab inspectors, right? It's just we're going to do this rehab inspection. When you get into multifamily, it gets a special name. They're called capital needs assessments. And so you'll see them referred to as a CNA. You also see them referred to as a PNA for physical needs assessment. It is the exact same thing we're talking about with a regular owner-occupied rehab, only instead of doing it for one unit, you're doing it for 100 or 80, and you are going through every single unit, every single component. Okay? Now, in this article we have for you, on the first page, the author uses the word high-quality CNA 4 times. Okay? So then he actually starts off 3 paragraphs with a high-quality CNA, a high-quality CNA, a high-quality CNA. Now, if there are high-quality CNAs, what else does it mean there are? Exactly. So one of the very important components when you're going to select whatever process we're required to use to select someone who's going to do a capital needs assessment for our existing rental units, we're going to have to make sure they're very well qualified. If we're going to make sure they're very well qualified, it means we're going to walk through some of the things we want to look for, but it also means these are more cheap. Okay? So these are much more expensive than a $500 inspection of an owner-occupied unit. You know, we see CNAs costing anywhere up to $10,000. For the larger the building, the more it's going to cost. Okay? One of the key components of the capital needs assessment we'll talk about in a minute is knowing the age of the stuff and how much longer it's going to last. When you're going to buy, if they're all the refrigerators, think about the HUD HQS. Working refrigerator, check, right? But it doesn't say working refrigerator is 9 years old and probably will crash and burn in a year. Anywhere on there. And so that's the difference between it. And that's why you wouldn't have someone who's used to doing HQS inspections do your capital needs assessment. Because HQS is I would argue it's a very low bar. Does it work? Yes, no. Does the roof leak? Yes, no. It's not, roof is 19 years old and probably will last another 16 months if you're lucky, right? So the capital needs assessment is absolutely going to look at age. So assuming this stuff is all brand new and we've just replaced everything, you know, we've got a roof with just the 360 a month, we've got to count on the roof lasting forever, it won't. We've got to count on the AC never going bad, and it will. So that $360 or $300 per unit per year that we're allowed to use by the underwriters is not going to be enough to cover this cost. Now, why not? Well, it's kind of interesting. One of the ways that allegedly this author is making the case that $300 per unit per year came up from the Massachusetts Housing Authority when they were trying to get a handle in 1980 on how much things cost. And no one's really changed it. The other thing, and all of us who've been around, especially the public sector, while realize how likely that is to be true, right? I mean, you know, we come up with one number and it's like, okay, this is it. And then staff changes, there's turnover. Someone goes, what's the number we use for replacement reserves? Oh, $300, okay. And it just stays in. So that's one argument for that. The second reason is that if we're doing this market rate, remember we saw how much in that market rate example we had $1 million we were borrowing? Every year we're paying off a portion of that, right? So every year that number is getting smaller. After 10 years, when this stuff starts to go, we just refinance. The building's still worth, you know, hopefully worth more than we paid for it, $1 million, $2 million, $1.5 million. Still worth that. We paid down, we put $280,000 in or $250,000 in. We paid down a portion of the mortgage, probably, you know, a third of it. Now all of a sudden we've got $600,000 cash. So the idea is we're setting aside money for the replacement reserves, but we also know that we're going to go refinance it in year 10, pull cash out and make these repairs. Now that kind of falls apart with affordable housing because we're not putting any money in. And we've got $900,000 coming from NST in our example. We're getting $400,000 mortgage. In 10 years, we might have gotten down to $300,000, but we don't have nearly enough room in order to borrow money again and make these repairs. On page 32 of this, one page over, it starts talking about what some of the components of a well-designed capital plan are. We've got to have an inventory, we've got to do an inspection on what needs on all of the systems. So not just paying attention, you're going to buy some of these units, and not just pay attention what's not working now, someone needs to look at the AC and say, okay, how old is the AC? Oh, it's 12 years old. Gee, this brand has a lifespan of 15 years. In 3 years, we're expecting these AC units to start going. Now, with some of the large rental deals, we're not talking about a $3,000 or $5,000 AC like you would have for a house. We're talking $50,000 for some of these. So having something that's cost $50,000 that's going to fail in 3 years, you really need to know that when you're negotiating your price for some of these existing buildings. And as Janice pointed out, you need to know the age of every one of these components. When we do owner-occupied rehab, we often don't do that. We're not enough. We don't look at the age of things and think how long they're going to break. When you're getting ready to buy rental property, you need to look at how old something is and what its expected lifespan is. Because for the next 50 years, you're on the hook for this thing, or 20, whatever it has to be. Okay. If you're going to do, if it's a nonprofit, if you're going to fund a nonprofit that's going to do a capital needs assessment themselves, on page 34, this has got some items that you're going to have to address. One is you're going to have an evaluation tool that you can use to convert all the systems, evaluate all these systems in a consistent manner. Staff-wise, this author is arguing it takes 40 hours to do a capital needs assessment of a multifamily unit. So you're going to have staff that's got the time to be able to allocate to this. We used to argue, and I always think it's still sound, especially on some of these larger deals, that you really need an architect to be looking at these, especially if you're going to be making any changes to the structure itself. Now, there is a nonprofit in Kissimmee, and in Kissimmee, there are a number of vacant mom-and-pop hotels on Road 1792. Okay? And this nonprofit, who does substance abuse, went and bought an existing hotel and is converting it into housing of one-bedroom apartments. So they're taking existing hotel rooms, knocking a hole in the wall, converting them to existing apartments. You need someone that knows which walls are road-bearing walls, right? I mean, because if it was me, I'd be knocking holes in walls that probably I should knock holes in. So you would, in that case, you need an architect who will go through and evaluate which walls he could knock holes in and put a door in to create these one-bedroom apartments. And I think, in Osceola County, and I don't know other communities in the state if y'all are facing this, but in talking with them, a lot of those mom and pop hotels on 1792 are in foreclosure. So that's an opportunity there for them to use some of their money, especially since they got $11 million, but that's another story. But that's an opportunity there for them to use some of those buildings and use their NSP money to go buy some of these small mom and pop hotels, rehab them, and turn them into decent housing for people, especially if they're hitting people with special needs. One of the challenges I think that people have with having a capital needs assessment done by your in-house staff is having someone that's very objective. It's kind of like having someone on staff doing your own appraisal, right? If you want a number for an appraisal, you can get that number. If you really want to deal with work and the executive director says, I really love this property, I really want to buy this, I really want to make it work, go tell me what's wrong with it. You're thinking, oh gosh, we're starting to run up a lot of costs, maybe I'll back off on that. So you need someone that's going to give you a truly objective capital needs assessment. And that brings us to another issue that I think is extremely important for everyone in this room. One of the cardinal sins of development is to fall in love with your deal. Never fall in love with your deal. You've got to always try to make an objective approach. There's one developer in Southeast Florida, a nonprofit, who had grown up in this neighborhood, had lived in this apartment building when it was nice. It was now 400 units of slumlord housing. It was awful. She decided she had to buy it, and the organization had to buy it. They only did a partial capital needs assessment. They only looked at a small number of the units. They did not get all of the problems with the site, all the problems with drainage, all the problems with the parking lot, and now the organization is almost facing bankruptcy because she fell in love with the deal. And anytime anyone tried to say, this is not going to work, she's like, no, we have to save this. It is why we're here. It's our mission. It's our obligation to do this. But she just didn't factor in enough money and have enough sources to be able to cover all the problems with that. And I would argue that the first mistake she made was falling in love with the